He, a powerful and skeptical tycoon on the hunt for fresh talent. She, a bright but timid young assistant about to have the interview of her life. In the lobby of the luxurious skyscraper, her envious colleague needles her about her lack of a social life. In a fit of panic, Rafaela grabs a stranger's arm and blurts out, "Oh, honey! You're here! This is my boyfriend. He's just so private." The stranger, caught completely off guard, is Enzo Castellani, the CEO of the company interviewing her. The lie, which should have been mortifying, sparks curiosity and an unexpected attraction in Enzo. The alarm clock blared at 5:30 a.m. as always. Rafaela Silva opened her eyes in the small room she shared with her younger sister in Queens, New York. The rumble of buses already echoed in the street, mingled with the sounds of neighbors preparing breakfast. She rose slowly, trying not to wake Camilla, who was still sound asleep. In the tiny bathroom, Rafaela stared at her reflection in the cracked mirror. At 28, she carried the weight of supporting her family since her father had lost his job at the factory. Her mother, Donna Cleed, worked as a cleaning lady, but the money was never enough. Rafaela had managed to graduate with a degree in digital marketing through a scholarship program, studying late at night after long days at the small agency where she worked as an assistant. Today was different. Today was the day of the interview that could change everything. She put on her only interview outfit, a navy blue blazer she'd bought on sale, and a black skirt her mother had helped alter. On the crowded subway, she held her portfolio tightly, a shield against the jostling and the anxiety that grew with each stop. Across town, in the penthouse of a building on Wall Street, Enzo Castellani finished his 10-kilometer morning run on the treadmill. At 37, the CEO of Castellani Tech had built an empire worth billions of dollars, but his routine was militarily precise. Wake up at 5, exercise, review reports, strategic meetings. There was no room for unforeseen events or emotions. Enzo observed New York City below through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city moved like a well-oiled machine, and he liked that. Predictability, control, numbers that made sense, unlike people who always disappointed him with their confusing motivations and volatile feelings. His executive assistant, Marcia, had prepared the day's schedule. Among the meetings, an interview with candidates for the new position of digital marketing manager. Enzo rarely participated in this type of selection, but the project was too strategic to delegate completely. Rafaela arrived at the mirrored building in Midtown 2 hours early. She sat in the luxurious lobby, trying to calm her nerves. The white marble, ornamental plants, and stream of well-dressed executives intimidated her, but she took a deep breath and mentally rehearsed her presentation. Rafaela Silva, a sharp feminine voice made her look up. It was Patricia Mendez, her colleague from her current agency. Blonde, always impeccably dressed, Patricia had a knack for appearing at the worst possible moments. "Patricia, what are you doing here?" "Meeting with a client. But the question is, what are you doing in a place like this?" Patricia looked around with disdain. I hope you're not thinking of applying for something here. You know how it is, Rafa. Places like this require a certain profile." Rafaela felt her cheeks flush. "Yeah, what profile?" "Oh, you know. Networking, important connections, social presence." Patricia lowered her voice, but not enough. "I mean, a woman your age, single, without even a presentable boyfriend. It's complicated in the corporate world. Executives prefer people who are more socially established." Rafaela's heart raced. It was exactly her deepest fears being verbalized right there, in the lobby of her dream company, just minutes before the most important interview of her life. I do have a boyfriend," she lied, her voice coming out louder than she intended. "Oh, really?" Patricia raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "Funny, I've never seen one. What's he like?" In total panic, Rafaela looked desperately around. Her eyes landed on an elegant man sitting in a nearby armchair, discreetly reading a report. Immaculately tailored suit, confident posture, the look of a successful executive. Without thinking, she walked over to him and grabbed his arm. "Oh, honey, "You're here," she said loudly enough for Patricia to hear. "This is my friend Patricia. She was asking about you. You know how private my boyfriend is. He doesn't like the spotlight." The man looked up from the report, and Rafaela found herself facing a pair of deep, intelligent brown eyes. For a moment that felt eternal, he studied her with an unreadable expression while she held her breath, praying he wouldn't expose her in front of Patricia. Enzo felt a mixture of surprise and amusement when the young woman grabbed his arm. There was something genuinely desperate in her brown eyes, a vulnerability that contrasted with the impulsive courage of the gesture. He observed her friend, a blonde with a malicious smile who had clearly provoked the situation. "Of course, honey," he replied naturally, closing the report and standing up. His voice was deep, controlled. "Sorry I'm late. The traffic was a nightmare." Patricia blinked several times, clearly shocked. The man Rafaela had chosen as her impromptu boyfriend was impressive, tall, broad-shouldered, with a presence that commanded respect naturally. "Pleasure to meet you." Enzo extended his hand to Patricia, who shook it a little longer than necessary. "The pleasure is all mine." She tried to fish for the name. "Robert," Enzo lied without hesitation, instinctively protecting Rafaela's charade. "Robert Silva." "Silva? What a coincidence. Same last name as Rafaela." Patricia laughed in a forced way. "We're distant cousins," Rafaela improvised, feeling the blush rise up her neck. "That's how we met, isn't it, honey?" Enzo nodded, a barely perceptible smile playing on his lips. There was something refreshing about this absurd situation. In his world of scheduled meetings and calculated conversations, this moment of pure spontaneity intrigued him. "Well, I need to go." Patricia checked her watch, clearly annoyed that she couldn't expose the situation. "Rafa, I'll see you at the agency tomorrow. I want to hear more about this relationship." As Patricia walked away, Rafaela immediately released Enzo's arm and took a step back. "I'm so sorry." The words tumbled out. "I don't know what came over me. It was a terrible impulse. I never should have. You must think I'm crazy or worse." "Take a breath," Enzo said, watching her gesture nervously. "It wasn't a big deal." "It wasn't a big deal? I literally roped you into a lie." Rafaela ran her hands through her hair. "God, I don't even know your real name." "Thank you for playing along, but it must have been so embarrassing." "Enzo," he said simply. "Enzo Castellani." Rafaela stopped talking abruptly. The name sounded familiar, but she couldn't place it. "And you?" he asked, genuinely curious about this woman who had burst into his perfectly planned morning. "Rafaela Silva, Rafa," she bit her lip. "Listen, I know this is going to sound even crazier, but I have an interview here in a little while, and I'm terrified that this situation will somehow get back to the interviewer. You won't say anything to anyone, will you?" Enzo tilted his head, intrigued. "Interview for what position?" "Digital marketing manager," she replied, straightening her shoulders with a shy pride. "It's an incredible opportunity, a dream, really. If I get it, I can finally get my family out of where we're living, give my sister a better life." The sincerity in her voice hit him unexpectedly. Enzo was used to people wanting to impress him, measuring every word, every gesture. Rafaela spoke as if he were just a kind stranger in the lobby. "I'm sure you'll do great," he said, and realized that he actually believed it. There was a determination in her that transcended the nervousness. "Thanks for the vote of confidence." Rafaela smiled for the first time, a genuine smile that lit up her face. "And thank you so much for helping me with Patricia. I don't know how I'm going to explain this in the future, but Ms. Rafaela Silva." A voice called from the reception desk. "Mr. Castellani will see you now." Rafaela nodded to the receptionist and turned to Enzo one last time. "Well, it's now or never. Wish me luck." "Robert," she winked conspiratorially and walked toward the elevators, her heels clicking on the marble. Enzo watched her walk away, noting her upright posture despite the nervousness, the way she took a deep breath before getting into the elevator. As the doors closed, he checked his watch and sighed. It was time to go up too, for his own meeting, where he would interview candidates for the position of digital marketing manager. He didn't know yet that the woman he had just defended a lie for in the lobby was the same one who was going up to meet him again, this time as interviewer and candidate. When the elevator doors opened on the 30th floor, Rafaela was led down an elegant hallway to a conference room with a panoramic view of the city. Her legs trembled slightly as the secretary announced that Mr. Castellani would see her in a moment. The name still echoed in her mind. Castellani. Where had she heard that before? The door opened and Rafaela turned, a professional smile already formed on her lips. The smile vanished instantly. Across the table, Enzo Castellani, the real Enzo Castellani, CEO of the company, not Robert Silva from the lobby, was watching her with the same unreadable expression from half an hour ago. "Please have a seat," he said, his voice maintaining a professional tone, but Rafaela caught a playful glint in his eyes. She sat down slowly, her face burning with shame. "Mr. Castellani, I can explain." "You don't have to." Enzo opened the folder with her resume. "Let's get to the interview. Tell me about your experience with digital campaigns." During the next 40 minutes, something extraordinary happened. Despite the initial embarrassment, Rafaela transformed. Her shyness gave way to a genuine passion for the work. She presented case studies, demonstrated impressive technical knowledge, and proposed innovative strategies for the company's challenges. Enzo, who had interviewed hundreds of candidates over the years, found himself genuinely interested, not only in her answers, but in the way her eyes sparkled when she talked about creative projects, how she gestured when explaining complex concepts. "Last question," he said, closing the dossier. "Why do you want this position?" Rafaela hesitated, then decided on complete honesty. "Because I need to prove that I can be more than people expect of me. I come from the outer boroughs, Mr. Castellani. My family has worked since they were 12 to survive. I studied late at night, took 3 buses to get here today." Her voice gained firmness. "But I have ideas, I'm hungry to grow, and I know I can make a difference. Not because it's a nice dream, but because it's a necessity." Silence stretched for long seconds. Enzo studied her face, the genuine determination, the vulnerability she wasn't trying to hide. "You're hired," he said finally. What?" "Start on Monday. Marcia, my assistant, will send you all the details." Rafaela stood up, trembling. "Mr. Castellani, about what happened in the lobby." "What happened in the lobby stays in the lobby." Enzo stood up too, extending his hand. "Welcome to the team, Ms. Silva. In the following weeks, a strange routine was established. During the day, Rafaela was the new marketing manager, working hard to prove her worth. Enzo was the distant professional CEO who rarely came down to her floor. But there were moments, glances that crossed in meetings, technical conversations that stretched beyond what was necessary. A growing tension that neither knew how to name. One night, working late on an urgent campaign, Rafaela went up to the executive floor to deliver reports. Enzo's office was still lit, still here. She appeared in the doorway. "Always," he replied without looking up from the papers. "And you?" "Finishing the campaign for the premium line." Rafaela hesitated at the door. "Can I ask you something?" Enzo finally looked at her. "Why did you hire me? Was it really because of my resume?" He leaned back in his chair, studying her. "Do you want the diplomatic answer or the honest one?" The honest one. Because you reminded me of someone I knew a long time ago, someone who also had the courage to lie to protect her dignity." Rafaela frowned. "Who?" Enzo was silent for a long moment, a shadow crossing his face. "My mother. She used to make up stories for the neighbors about why my father wasn't home, that he was traveling for work, that he was taking care of important business." His voice became lower. "Actually, he had abandoned us when I was 10 years old. She lied to preserve our dignity, to protect me from humiliation." Rafaela felt something shift in her chest. "I'm sorry. She died when I was 16. Cancer." Enzo turned his eyes back to the papers. "She worked 3 jobs, never had time to take care of herself. I promised myself I would never be vulnerable like that, Never depend on anyone. Is that why you work so hard? To prove you're different from him. Enzo looked at her, surprised by her insight. Maybe. He stood up, walking to the window. What I do know is that when I saw you in the lobby, desperate to maintain your dignity in front of that woman, I saw my mother, and I wanted to protect you like I couldn't protect her. Rafaela approached slowly. She would be proud of the man you've become. Would she? Enzo turned to her, something raw in his eyes. Sometimes I wonder if I've built an empire or just a well-decorated prison. For the first time since they met, the tension between them changed its nature. It was no longer embarrassment or reluctant attraction. It was mutual recognition. Two people who understood the weight of carrying worlds on their shoulders. Rafaela? His voice was hoarser. At that moment, Enzo's cell phone rang shrilly. He answered automatically, and Rafaela saw his expression harden. I understand. They'll cancel everything. I'll be there in an hour. He hung up and turned to her. I have to go. Emergency meeting. Of course, I'm leaving too. Rafaela, he stopped at the door. Thank you for listening. When he left, Rafaela was alone in the silent office, feeling that something had irrevocably changed between them, and that this change would put them on much more dangerous ground than a simple lie in the lobby. Then, 3 weeks after the late-night conversation in the office, Rafaela had established herself as a creative force in the company. Her campaigns were generating exceptional results, and she was beginning to feel truly at home in that environment that had once intimidated her. It was a rainy Friday when everything changed. Rafaela was finishing a presentation when her cell phone rang. The number for the ICU at New York Presbyterian Hospital appeared on the screen, making her heart leap. Ms. Silva, this is Nurse Carla. Your mother, Donna Cleed, was admitted here an hour ago. Acute myocardial infarction. Can you come immediately? Rafaela's world collapsed. The nurse's words mixed with the sound of rain against the windows, creating a deafening buzz in her mind. Yes, I'm coming, she managed to say, her hands shaking so much she could barely hold the phone. She hung up and stood in the middle of the room, paralyzed. Her mother, her rock, her fortress, was there alone, fighting for her life. Rafaela? Enzo's voice brought her back to reality. He was at the door, probably coming to discuss Monday's presentation. I need to go, she said, trying to organize the papers with trembling hands. My mother is in the hospital. She had a heart attack. Where? Enzo entered the room, seeing her state. New York Presbyterian. I'll take the subway or the bus, I don't know. The traffic with this rain. She was clearly in panic, talking more to herself than to him. Come, Enzo said, taking his keys out of his pocket. What? I'll take you. Now, Mr. Castellani, you don't have to. I can... Rafaela, his voice was firm but gentle. Don't argue. Your mother needs you, and you're not in a condition to drive or take public transportation. 20 minutes later, they were in Enzo's Mercedes, cutting through New York City traffic in torrential rain. Rafaela was silent in the passenger seat, her hands tightly clasped, staring straight ahead. She's going to be okay, Enzo said, breaking the silence. Oh, you don't know that, she replied, her voice breaking. She works so hard, always puts everyone in front of herself. I should have insisted more that she get checkups. I should have... Hey, Enzo briefly covered her hand with his. It's not your fault. His touch, warm and firm, made something loosen in Rafaela's chest. The tears she had been holding back finally came. She's all I have, she sobbed. After my father lost his job, she held everything together. She worked as a cleaning lady during the day, sold empanadas at night. Also, my sister and I could study. If she... Nothing's going to happen, Enzo said, his voice softer than she had ever heard. And you're not alone. At the hospital, Enzo stayed by Rafaela's side during the long hours of waiting. He cancelled all meetings, ignored dozens of calls, and simply stayed there, buying coffee, talking to doctors, being a solid presence while she fell apart. When the doctor finally came out of the ICU with positive news, Donna Cleed was stable, out of danger. Rafaela collapsed into Enzo's arms. He held her tightly, feeling her body trembling with relief and exhaustion. "Thank you," she whispered against his chest. "Thank you for staying." "Always," he replied, and realized he meant it. In the hours that followed, something fundamental changed between them. Enzo met Camilla, Rafaela's younger sister, a 19-year-old girl with the same determined smile. He talked to Donna Clade when she woke up, seeing where Rafaela's strength came from. And Rafaela saw a side of Enzo that few knew: kind, protective, genuinely concerned. It was almost midnight when they finally left the hospital. Donna Clade was sleeping peacefully, Camilla had gone home, and Rafaela was exhausted. "I'll take you home," Enzo said. "You've done too much. I can get a cab." "Rafaela, don't argue with me when it comes to your safety." In the car, the silence was different, laden with an intimacy that hadn't existed in the morning. "Why did you do it?" she asked, when they stopped in front of the building where she lived. "Do what? Stay with me?" "Cancelled everything, spent the whole day at the hospital." "Why?" Enzo turned off the engine and turned to her. In the dim light of the streetlight, Rafaela could see the internal struggle in his eyes. "Because..." He hesitated, then sighed. "Because you matter to me, more than you should." "Enzo!" "Yeah, I know it's complicated. I know it puts you in a difficult position, and me too. But today, seeing you desperate, the only thing that mattered was being there for you." Rafaela felt her heart race, the raw honesty in his voice, the vulnerability he rarely showed. "You matter to me too," she admitted softly. The tension in the car was palpable. Enzo brought his hand to her face, his thumb gently tracing her cheek. "This could complicate everything," he murmured. "I know. It could put your position at the company at risk. I know. People will talk, they'll judge." "Enzo," she covered his hand with hers. "I know all that." And even so, he leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. When their lips finally met, it was as if something that had been building for weeks had finally come to fruition. The kiss was gentle, charged with emotion and unspoken promises. When they parted, they both knew they had crossed a line from which there was no turning back. "What do we do now?" Rafaela whispered. "I don't know," Enzo admitted. "I just know I can't pretend this didn't happen." 2 floors above, behind a curtain, Patricia Mendez finished photographing the scene with her cell phone. She had followed Rafaela home, suspecting that there was something strange about that quick promotion. Now she had in her hands the proof that her suspicion was correct, and she knew exactly how to use that information. In the 3 weeks that followed, Enzo and Rafaela lived a delicate dance of secrets and stolen glances. At the office, they maintained an impeccable professional facade, but the stolen moments became precious, prolonged conversations about projects that could be resolved in minutes. Chance encounters in the elevator, discreet messages exchanged after hours. Rafaela had moved to a better apartment in Williamsburg, closer to the company and the hospital where Donna Clade was recovering. Officially, it was a natural consequence of her new salary. In reality, Enzo had insisted on helping with the medical costs and the move, something she had reluctantly accepted after lengthy discussions about pride and practical necessity. "Is everything okay between you two?" Camilla asked one Saturday morning while they were having coffee in the new apartment. "You're different, happier but also more tense." Rafaela almost choked on her coffee. "What are you talking about?" "Rafa, you're humming. You never hum. And yesterday, you spent an hour choosing clothes to go to work on a Saturday." Camilla raised an eyebrow. "There's someone, isn't there?" "Don't be ridiculous. I'm focused on my career," Rafaela lied, feeling her face flush. At the company, the situation was complicated in other ways. The success of Rafaela's campaigns had generated attention from the specialized media. A business magazine wanted to do a story on the new talents of Castellani Tech, and Enzo would have to participate in the interviews along with her. "It's not a good idea," Rafaela said during a meeting in his office on Monday. "People are already commenting about me being promoted so quickly. If we appear together in a magazine..." "Those are just office rumors," Enzo replied, but she noticed the tension in his jaw. "Your results speak for themselves." Enzo, be realistic. A young woman from the outer boroughs who was hired and promoted in record time by a single CEO. People are going to draw conclusions. And what conclusions are those? His voice became colder. You know very well what conclusions. Silence stretched between them, charged with unexpressed frustrations. The reality of their secret relationship weighed on both of them in different ways. Maybe we should slow things down, Raffaella said finally. Just until things calm down. Is that what you want? Enzo asked, getting up and walking to the window. It's what's sensible. That's not what I asked. Raffaella watched him, the tense line of his shoulders, the way he avoided looking at her directly. No, it's not what I want. But I also don't want my career to be reduced to who I'm involved with. Enzo turned to her, something painful in his eyes. And you think that's what would happen? I don't know, but you can afford to take the risk. I can't. That afternoon, Patricia Mendez scheduled a meeting with Rodrigo Vasconcelos, the company's chief financial officer and a member of the board of directors. Rodrigo was an ambitious man who had always seen Enzo as an obstacle to his own leadership aspirations. Thank you for coming, Patricia, Rodrigo said in his office on the 28th floor. You mentioned important information about irregularities? Patricia placed a folder on the table. I wouldn't say irregularities, Rodrigo. I'd say conflicts of interest. Rodrigo opened the folder and found the photo she had taken the night at the hospital, as well as prints of messages and a detailed timeline of events since Raffaella's hiring. Interesting, he murmured, studying the material. Enzo's new darling isn't so innocent after all. What worries me most, Patricia said, feigning concern, is the possibility of favoritism. Such a quick hiring and promotion, a new apartment, medical expenses paid. It wouldn't be fair to the other employees. Indeed, Rodrigo closed the folder. What do you suggest? Just that the information reaches the right ears. The board, maybe some important investors. Not as an accusation, but as concern for the company's image. And you, of course, want nothing in return for this. Civic concern? Patricia smiled. Well, I always thought I deserved an opportunity on the marketing team. And I'm sure that when Raffaella's position becomes vacant, you'll remember who brought this information to light. Rodrigo nodded slowly. Leave it to me, but I want you to maintain this surveillance. I need more evidence before I act. That same night, Enzo was working late when his cell phone rang. It was a message from Raffaella. I need to see you. It's urgent. They met in the parking garage, away from prying eyes. What happened? Enzo asked, seeing her worried expression. Marcia came to me today, said that some people on the board are asking questions about me. About my hiring, my promotion, even about the apartment. Enzo felt his stomach sink. What kind of questions? How a person without executive experience was put in such an important position so quickly. Why my salary is significantly higher than that of other managers with more seniority. She paused, taking a deep breath. Enzo, they know something. That's impossible. We were discreet, were we? Raffaella laughed bitterly. No, you cancelled a whole day of meetings to stay at the hospital with me. You helped me with personal expenses. We have meetings that extend for hours with no apparent need. Anyone watching from the outside? So what are you suggesting? That maybe we should stop completely before this destroys everything we've built. Enzo studied her in the silence of the parking garage, seeing the pain she was trying to hide behind the determination. And if I say I don't want to stop, that I want to acknowledge this publicly, I'd say you're being naive about the consequences. For me, not for you. Raffaella. No, she shook her head. You're the CEO, Enzo. Your reputation can survive a relationship with an employee. Mine can't survive being seen as the employee who slept her way to the top. The brutality of the words hit Enzo like a punch. That's not what we are. I know that. You know that. But that's what they'll see. And once that narrative takes hold, there's no going back. Enzo was silent, knowing she was right, hating being right. So is that it? It's over? Raffaella fought back tears. It has to be, at least for now. As she walked away, Enzo stood alone in the parking garage, feeling that they had lost something precious before they even had a chance to explore it fully. And upstairs, through the window of his office, Rodrigo Vasconcelos smiled, knowing that his strategy was working perfectly. The net was closing in, and they had no idea how much. The extraordinary board meeting was scheduled for a Tuesday morning. Under the guise of urgent corporate governance issues, Enzo knew something was wrong when he saw the serious faces of the board members entering the room, but he didn't imagine the extent of the storm that was coming. Rodrigo Vasconcelos chaired the meeting with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Thank you for coming on short notice," he began, opening a folder before him. "Unfortunately, information has come to my attention that may compromise the reputation and integrity of our company." Enzo leaned forward. "What are you talking about, Rodrigo?" "I'm talking about possible favoritism, conflict of interest, and improper use of company resources for personal gain." Rodrigo spread the photographs on the table. These were taken a month ago on the night of October 15th. Enzo felt his blood run cold as he saw the images of him and Rafaela kissing in the car in front of her building. Other photos showed them at the hospital, him holding her hand, the consoling embraces. "Where did you get this?" Enzo asked, his voice dangerously low. "A concerned employee brought it to my attention." Rodrigo continued, relentless. "In addition to the images, we have documentation of suspicious bank transfers. A considerable sum was deposited into Ms. Silva's account shortly after her hiring, supposedly for help with family medical expenses. We also have records of an apartment leased in the name of a company subsidiary occupied by the same employee." Elena Moreira, the most respected independent board member, looked at Enzo with disappointment. "Enzo, is this true?" "The circumstances aren't what they seem." "The circumstances," Rodrigo interrupted, "are very clear. A CEO who uses his position to benefit an employee with whom he maintains a personal relationship. This not only violates our internal policies, but can also be interpreted as sexual harassment, given the disparity in power." "That's ridiculous," Enzo exploded. "Rafaela Silva was hired based on her merits. Her results speak for themselves." "Questionable results, considering the circumstances." Rodrigo placed more papers on the table. "Oh, we have here statements from other employees questioning the speed of her promotion, the special access she has to you, the prolonged and unnecessary meetings." Enzo immediately recognized Patricia Mendez's signature on one of the statements. "You orchestrated this," he said, standing up. "Rodrigo, you've always wanted my position, and you're using this as a pretext." "Sit down, Enzo," Helena said firmly. "If there's a conspiracy here, it can only be investigated if we remain calm and rational." Meanwhile, 2 floors below, Rafaela was in her office when Marcia appeared at the door, her face pale. "Rafaela, I need to talk to you now." "What happened?" "You need to leave immediately." Marcia closed the door. "The board is meeting now, and your name is being discussed. There are photos, documents. They know about you and Enzo." Rafaela felt the world spin. "What photos?" "From the hospital, from his car." "Rafaela, they're painting this as if you used your relationship with him to get advantages. And worse, they're suggesting that you deliberately seduced him. But that's not true." "I know that, you know that, but it doesn't matter." Marcia grabbed a box and began putting Rafaela's personal belongings inside. "The order is for you to clear your desk and leave the building before the meeting ends. Security has already been alerted." Rafaela sat heavily in the chair, watching her career crumble before her eyes. "What about Enzo?" "I don't know, but I imagine it won't be good for him either." 20 minutes later, Rafaela carried her box of belongings through the lobby under the curious glances and whispers of her colleagues. Patricia was there, feigning surprise, but Rafaela saw the poorly disguised triumph in her eyes. In the elevator that would take her away from everything she had built, Rafaela finally allowed the tears to fall. Back in the boardroom, the discussion had become more heated. "The situation is unsustainable," declared Rodrigo. "Our reputation cannot be tarnished by this type of behavior." I propose the immediate removal of Mr. Castellani from his executive functions pending a full investigation. This is a coup, Enzo said, controlling his anger. You're using my personal life to question my professional competence. Your personal life became a professional problem when you decided to mix the two, Rodrigo retorted. Helena sighed deeply. Enzo, I've known you for years. I know you're a man of integrity, but this indiscretion puts us all in a very difficult position. What indiscretion? Falling in love with an extraordinary woman. Using your position to benefit that woman, Rodrigo corrected, and doing it secretly, violating all our transparency policies. There was no violation. All the benefits she received were based on performance. Benefits that included an apartment and medical expenses paid by the company? Rodrigo raised an eyebrow. That's not on the manager's benefits package. As far as I recall, Enzo realized he was being cornered. Each explanation he gave sounded more like justification. I propose a vote, said Helena. All in favor of the temporary removal of Mr. Castellani until an independent investigation is completed. One by one, the hands went up. 7 votes in favor, 2 against. The decision is made, announced Helena, visibly shaken. Enzo, I'm sorry, but you are temporarily removed from your functions as CEO. Rodrigo will take over on an interim basis. Enzo looked around the room at people with whom he had built the company, who now treated him like a dangerous stranger. You just destroyed the best thing that happened to this company, he said, standing up. And the best thing that happened in my life. When he left the room, Enzo tried to call Rafaela, but the phone went straight to voicemail. He went down to her floor and found the office empty, just the square mark on the desk where her computer had been. Marcia appeared beside him. She left an hour ago. Security escorted her out. Where did she go? I don't know. But Enzo, she was devastated. That night, Enzo was in his apartment, looking at the city through the floor-to-ceiling windows when his phone rang. It was a message from Rafaela. Enzo, I saw the news. I'm so sorry all this happened because of me. You didn't deserve to pay for my mistakes. I need some time to process everything. Please don't try to contact me. Maybe it's better this way. He tried to call immediately, but the number was no longer working. The next day, the financial newspapers blared the headlines. Castellani Tech CEO ousted in love scandal, and sexual favoritism rocks tech giant. Enzo had lost his company, his reputation, and the woman he loved all at once. And for the first time in his adult life, he felt completely powerless. In a simple apartment in Queens, where she had returned after leaving the apartment in Williamsburg, Rafaela cried in her mother's arms, who had been discharged from the hospital the week before. My daughter, you didn't do anything wrong, Donna Cleed consoled. Yes, I did, Mom. I fell in love with the wrong man at the wrong time, and now I've destroyed his life too. Love is never wrong, daughter. It's the circumstances that are complicated. But Rafaela couldn't console herself. Everything she had achieved, the career, the financial independence, the chance to give her family a better life, had disappeared in a matter of hours. And worst of all, she had dragged Enzo down with her. She had decided that the only way to protect him was to disappear completely from his life, even if it meant giving up the only true happiness she had ever known. Soon, 2 weeks had passed since the scandal, and Rafaela lived like a shadow of herself. She woke up late, spent hours staring at the ceiling of the small room she was sharing again with Camilla, and avoided any news about Castellani Tech. Donna Clade watched her daughter with growing concern. Rafa, you can't continue like this, Camilla said one Thursday morning, sitting on the bed. It's been 2 weeks since you've barely left the room. I have nowhere to go, Rafaela murmured, pulling the blanket over her head. You have resumes to send, interviews to schedule, a life to rebuild. Camila, I've become persona non grata in the market. No one will hire me after this scandal. It was Camilla who had the idea to contact Marcia. She got Enzo's former secretary's number through a friend who worked in the company's IT department and arranged a meeting at a coffee shop downtown. Thank you for coming, Marcia said when she sat down at the table with Rafaela. The older woman seemed to have aged years in 2 weeks. "How is he?" was Rafaela's first question. "Terrible. He doesn't leave the apartment, doesn't answer calls, not even from his own meetings with lawyers." Marcia sighed. "Rafaela, he's devastated, not just by the company, but by losing you." Rafaela felt her chest tighten, but shook her head. "It was the only right thing to do. My presence would only cause him more problems." "Do you really believe that?" Marcia leaned forward. "Rafaela, I worked for Enzo for 8 years. I saw him build this company from scratch. I saw him become a workaholic. And you were the first thing that made him truly smile in all those years. That doesn't change the fact that our relationship cost him everything he built." "Our relationship?" Marcia frowned. "You didn't do anything wrong. You fell in love. It happens." "Marcia, you saw the photos, the documents." "I saw a very well-orchestrated setup to take Enzo down." Marcia's voice gained a new intensity. "Rafaela, don't you think it's strange that just when Enzo was considering expanding internationally, something Rodrigo always opposed, these evidences appeared?" Rafaela stopped stirring her coffee. "What are you implying?" "I'm not implying. I'm stating. Rodrigo orchestrated all of this, and Patricia was his tool. Do you have proof?" "I'm collecting it." Marcia lowered her voice. "I found out that Patricia had 3 meetings with Rodrigo before the scandal broke. And there's more. The photographer who took those photos? He works for a private investigation agency that has provided services for Rodrigo in the past." Rafaela felt a mixture of anger and hope begin to bubble in her chest. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because someone needs to fight for Enzo. And because you're the only person who can motivate him to fight for himself." Marcia grabbed her purse. "There's a board meeting next Monday. Rodrigo will propose his permanent appointment as CEO. If nothing happens by then, Enzo loses everything forever." That night, Rafaela called a number she hadn't dialed in years. "Hello?" The familiar voice made her smile for the first time in weeks. "Bruno." "It's Rafa." Bruno Carvalho had been her college classmate and now worked as an investigative journalist for a major news portal. They had dated briefly in their sophomore year, but remained friends. "Rafa, wow, long time no see." The joy in his voice was genuine. "I saw your name in the news. Are you okay?" "I need your help, Bruno, and I think you'll be interested in the story I have to tell." They met the next day. Rafaela told him everything, from the encounter in the lobby to Marcia's revelations. Bruno took detailed notes, his eyes shining with the journalistic flair she remembered from college. "This is big, Rafa. If we can prove it was an internal conspiracy." He paused. "But we're going to need solid evidence. It can't just be speculation." "How do we get that evidence?" "Leave it to me. I have some contacts who can help." Bruno closed his notebook. "But Rafa, are you sure you want to stir up this hornet's nest? These people have already shown they're capable of anything." "I'm sure." The determination in Rafaela's voice surprised even herself. "They destroyed a good man to satisfy their ambition. I'm not going to let that go." Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Marcia was meeting with Carla, an accounting employee who had always been loyal to Enzo. "Are you sure about these documents?" asked Marcia, looking at the spreadsheets that Carla had brought. "Absolutely." Rodrigo altered the records of the transfers to Rafaela's account, made it look like they were regular payments, when in fact they were one-time reimbursements for medical expenses, approved by the board itself after the presentation of invoices. Carla pointed to specific numbers. And more, he created a trail of false documents suggesting favoritism, when we all know that her promotion was based on the results of the campaigns. "Would you be willing to testify about this?" Carla hesitated. "Marcia, I have a family. If Rodrigo finds out it was me..." "I understand. But Carla, if we do nothing, an innocent man is going to lose everything, and a corrupt man is going to take control of the company. How many other honest employees are going to suffer after that?" On Friday, Bruno called Rafaela with news. "I got something interesting. The private investigator who took the photos, he has a questionable history. He's been sued twice for fabricating evidence. And there's more. I got the proof of the payments he received. They came from an offshore account linked to Rodrigo. Is that enough? It's a good start. But we need more. Someone who has overheard conversations, seen meetings, has access to emails. Bruno paused. Rafa, don't you know anyone from the inside who can help? Rafaela thought immediately of Marcia, but then remembered someone else. Maybe I know someone. On Saturday night, Rafaela knocked on the door of an apartment in the Upper West Side. When the door opened, she came face to face with Lucas, the junior marketing assistant who had always been kind to her. Rafaela. He looked around nervously. What are you doing here? I need your help, Lucas. And I think you're the only person in the company who can still hear me without judging me. Lucas let her in. During the next hour, Rafaela explained everything she had discovered. She saw the shock and then the anger form on the young man's face. I knew something was strange, he said finally. Patricia was very close to Rodrigo in recent weeks, and she had never spoken to him before. And there's more. She requested access to the personal files of employees last week, said it was for an HR project. Can you get evidence of their meetings? Emails, calendars, anything? Lucas hesitated, then nodded. I can try, but we have to be fast. Monday is the board meeting, and Monday morning the system is going to be updated. After that, any digital trace may disappear. So we have a weekend. Sunday night, Rafaela met with Bruno, Marcia, and Lucas at a small diner in Greenwich Village. The table was covered with documents, email printouts, and photos. We have enough evidence to prove the conspiracy, said Bruno, organizing the papers. Payments to the detective, alteration of accounting documents, secret meetings, even recordings of conversations between Patricia and Rodrigo that Lucas got from the security system. What do we do now? Asked Marcia. Now, said Rafaela, feeling a determination she hadn't experienced in weeks. We're going to war, and we're going to get back everything they stole from Enzo. But she knew that the evidence alone would not be enough. Rodrigo had control of the board, and they needed something more dramatic, more public to reverse the situation. Bruno, what's the chance of you getting access to tomorrow's meeting? With press credentials? Almost impossible. Why? Rafaela smiled for the first time in weeks, but it was a dangerous smile. Because we're going to make this meeting a lot more interesting than Rodrigo expects. The board meeting was scheduled for 9 o'clock on Monday morning. At 8:45, Rodrigo Vasconcelos adjusted his tie in the mirror of the executive bathroom, savoring his final victory in advance. In a matter of minutes, he would be officially appointed permanent CEO of Castellani Tech. In the boardroom, the board members settled in. Helena Moreira leafed through papers with a worried look. Although she agreed that Enzo had crossed ethical boundaries, something about this whole situation bothered her. Outside the building, Rafaela took a deep breath. She wore her best suit, the same one from the interview that had changed her life months ago, and carried a folder with the evidence they had collected. Bruno was positioned at the front desk with a discreet camera, while Lucas had gone up the service staircase to temporarily disable the security system that would prevent Rafaela's access. At 9 o'clock sharp, Rodrigo opened the meeting. Board members, thank you for attending this historic meeting. As you know, we are here to formalize my appointment as permanent CEO of Castellani Tech, definitively ending the embarrassing Enzo Castellani chapter. It was at that moment that the doors of the room opened dramatically. Rafaela entered with determination, followed by Bruno with his camera, Marcia carrying a second folder of documents, and to everyone's surprise, Enzo Castellani. What does this mean? Rodrigo exploded, standing up. Security! This is a private meeting. The security guards aren't coming, Enzo said calmly, for the first time in weeks looking like someone who had slept and eaten properly. Because this meeting is being broadcast live to our shareholders and the press. It's time for the truth to come out. Helena stood up as well. Enzo, I understand your frustration, but this behavior is unacceptable. Helena, with all due respect, listen to what we have to say before you judge us, Rafaela interrupted, placing the folder on the table. Because we have discovered something that will be of great interest to all of you. Rodrigo was visibly nervous. This is inadmissible. I will not allow you to turn this meeting into... Into what, Rodrigo? Enzo approached the table, his eyes fixed on the man who had orchestrated his downfall. Into an opportunity for you to finally be exposed for who you really are. Bruno activated the transmission equipment that Lucas had previously set up. Ladies and gentlemen, said Rafaela, addressing both the board members and the camera, my name is Rafaela Silva. 2 weeks ago, I was publicly defamed and fired from this company under accusations of having used a personal relationship to obtain professional advantages. Today, I am here to prove that I was the victim of a conspiracy orchestrated by the man who is now seeking the presidency of this company. She opened the folder and began distributing documents. First evidence, proof of payment of $50,000 to Gabriel Mendez, a private investigator specializing in surveillance. The payments came from an offshore account controlled by Mr. Rodrigo Vasconcelos. This same detective has a history of fabricating evidence. Rodrigo paled. This is a setup. Second evidence, Rafaela continued. Relentless. Recordings of conversations between Mr. Vasconcelos and employee Patricia Mendez, where they explicitly discuss how to use my relationship with Enzo to take him down. Lucas, please. Lucas, who had entered discreetly, activated the sound system. Rodrigo's voice echoed through the room. The point isn't whether they did something wrong, Patricia. The point is to make it seem like they did. A photo at the right moment, some misinterpreted documents, and we can end Enzo's reign once and for all. The silence in the room was deafening. Third evidence, said Marcia, taking the floor. Deliberate alteration of accounting documents to make it seem that there was financial favoritism, when in fact all the amounts transferred to Ms. Silva's account were medical reimbursements duly documented and approved by the board itself. Helena stared at Rodrigo, who was trying to maintain his composure. I can explain all this. Can you also explain this? Enzo placed a last folder on the table. Documents that prove that you have been embezzling funds from the company for 3 years, using the same offshore accounts that paid the detective. The audit that you feared so much wasn't to investigate my relationship with Rafaela. It was to investigate you. Rodrigo completely lost color. Several board members stood up, the agitation taking over the room. Rodrigo, said Helena, her voice laden with authority and disappointment, do you have anything to say in your defense? Before he could answer, Patricia burst into the room, clearly in panic. Rodrigo, we need to talk. The press is calling, they know everything. She stopped abruptly when she saw the scene before her. Patricia Mendez, said Bruno, focusing the camera on her. Would you like to comment on your participation in the conspiracy to take down Enzo Castellani? Patricia looked from Rodrigo to the board members, realizing that she had fallen into a trap. I just did what I thought was right for the company. Right? Rafaela's voice rose an octave. You thought it was right to destroy the reputation of innocent people out of envy and personal ambition. You didn't deserve that position. Patricia exploded, all her mask of professionalism finally falling. A girl from the outer boroughs, without connections, without a history. I've worked at this company for 5 years. And in 5 years, what has been your greatest contribution? Enzo asked calmly. Because in 3 months, Rafaela increased our digital marketing revenue by 40%. The live broadcast had reached thousands of views. The comments supported Enzo and Rafaela overwhelmingly and condemned the conspiracy. Helena took control of the situation. This meeting is adjourned. Rodrigo, Vasconcelos and Patricia Mendez are fired with immediate effect, and their actions will be reported to the competent authorities. She turned to Enzo. Enzo, on behalf of the board, we formally apologize for the injustice committed. You are immediately reinstated as CEO. Thank you, Helena. But before I accept, I need to make something clear. Enzo turned to Rafaela, who was standing by the table, still processing the magnitude of what they had achieved. Rafaela Silva wasn't my employee who became my girlfriend. She was an extraordinary woman who became my love, and who happened to also be brilliant enough to deserve a position in this company on her own merits. His voice gained intensity. And if this company isn't able to separate professional competence from personal life, then maybe it's not the right company for either of us. Enzo, Rafaela sighed. No, let me finish. He approached her, ignoring the cameras and the board members. Rafaela, I love you. I love your intelligence, your determination, your courage. I love how you fight for your family, how you care about people, how you make me want to be a better man. He took her hands. And if I have to choose between this company and you, I choose you. 1,000 times, tears ran down Rafaela's face. You don't have to choose. You never had to. So will you accept to come back? As my partner in business and in life, only if you promise me one thing. Anything. That we will never again let other people define who we are or what we deserve. I promise. When they kissed, the room erupted in applause. Even some of the more conservative board members seemed touched. Helena cleared her throat. Well, I believe we have some decisions to make. Enzo, do you accept to return as CEO? I accept. On one condition. Rafaela Silva will be promoted to Chief Marketing Officer with all the autonomy and responsibilities of the position. Unanimously approved, said Helena, smiling. 6 months later, Castellani Tech had reached record-breaking revenues. The corporate transparency campaign, led by Rafaela, had become a case study in business schools. And the couple had become a symbol that it was possible to mix personal and professional life ethically and successfully. One Saturday morning, Enzo and Rafaela were on the balcony of her apartment in Williamsburg. She had decided to maintain financial independence, but now by choice, not by necessity. Donna Cleed was preparing coffee in the kitchen, while Camilla was studying for the administration entrance exam. Do you regret anything? Asked Rafaela, nestled in his arms. Taking so long to confess that I was in love with you from that first day in the lobby, Enzo replied, kissing the top of her head. Even with all the mess we caused? Especially because of the mess we caused, he smiled. No, after all, if it weren't for you having invented a boyfriend, I would never have discovered that I wanted to be that boyfriend for real. Rafaela laughed, remembering the despair of that day that had changed their lives forever. I must admit it was the best lie I ever told, and I must admit it was the best truth I ever transformed into. In the company's office, a new plaque shone on the door. Rafaela Silva, Chief Marketing Officer, and on her desk, a photo, her and Enzo on the day of the press conference where they announced their engagement, smiling like two people who had discovered that true love not only survives the storms, but strengthens with them. After all, sometimes the best love stories begin with a little lie that turns into the biggest truth of two lives.